January 22nd. Voting members, just quick roll call. Craig Wilbur present.
Don Davis.
Tony Tagliabue.
David Martindale.
Ryan Flanders.
All 5 voting members are present. Thank you. Take a moment to give the pledge of allegiance.
Yes.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, over the last few weeks, Brian Dooms has begun his work with the police department. I'm going to turn this over to Chief Strout just to give us an update, but in general, he is ready to present a needs assessment report next week as early as Wednesday. So we'll talk more about that shortly, but they've been very busy, and I'd like the chief to kind of talk us through what she's been doing.
All right, thank you. So we met, Brian and I had a phone conference and then scheduled an in-person meeting, which took place, I believe, last Tuesday. He came to the police department. He spent about 3.5 hours-ish at the police department. Took a very in-depth tour of the police department so he could kind of determine what our space was, what we needed for space, and such as this. So what I do have in front of me is a draft. None of you guys have seen this yet because it's not a final copy. So it's just what we've been going back and forth. What Brian wanted me to do is kind of give you guys an update, a little bit of where we're at, and then he felt once dispatch and the police department has approved this, then he will come present it to you guys next week if you're willing to meet next week. I know Becky already booked the meeting on the off chance that you guys would be willing to meet next Wednesday, and Brian will join us via Zoom. So I told him I would confirm that if you guys were okay to meet next Wednesday. So what this is it's a full space needs assessment. So it has a table of contents. I'm not going to go over everything. I'm just going to kind of highlight a few things. If you have questions, we can address those individually. So he goes over the current space. We did statistics from 2000, 2010, 2020, 2035, 2045, because as you guys have instructed, to project into the future what we're going to be based on call volume. What we did notice is when we did call volume from 2000, it was substantially lower than 2010, like 4 times lower. So we went back and we kind of dug into that a little deeper, and what we came up with is that dispatch wasn't at the police department. So dispatch was using their software, we were using our own software. They would fax us our log, and things just didn't get logged as well as they do now because we're all under the same software umbrella. So we decided to move it to 2008 for our call stats, and that gave us a far more accurate picture. So, so what this has is calls for service annually for 2008, 2010, 24, and projected for 2035, 2045 based on what we've seen. Citations, criminal arrests, court summons, those are just some of the numbers we utilized for statistics. We did department vehicles, just he targeted 2000, 2010, 24, and then what we would be looking at in 2035 and 45. So again, I'm happy to answer any of those questions. We did staff projections from historical into the future based on, again, projected call volume.
Was there a discussion about public need for parking and so forth? And that involved?
So every single thing that we addressed is all in here.
Okay.
So he went through and we went line by line, item by item, and we went through exactly, we submitted what we believed our needs to be to them, to Brian, based on officers' opinions, what their wants would be, and most importantly, what accredited space looks like in a police department. So we submitted that to Brian. Brian took that into account and then, again, toured our department, and based on what his knowledge and experience is building a police department and what that should look like, or what space it should be, not building a police department. So he went through and we have the public entrance, like the vestibule lobby, public restrooms, and it goes through and it identifies each item that needs to be there. Again, you guys will get a whole copy of this, so if you want me to go through it line by line, I can, but I don't want to take up too much time. Training classroom, interview room, public permitting, communications dispatch center. Gabby, Becky, and I met with him. Some of the officers were invited. It was a staff-only type of meeting, just so he could get the officers in the department and the dispatchers' input. So we went through, communications dispatch center, the supervisor, restroom, kitchenette within the dispatch center, a records clerk office, what administration would look like, my office. We projected for in the future having a lieutenant's position down the road, because I do believe at some point we're going to need that based on workload alone. The executive assistant conference room, supply storage, investigations area, interviews, office space. I'm going to get to the good stuff here. Animal control officer would have their own room. Quiet room, lactation room, which you have to provide. They don't expect females to share locker rooms with males like I had to. It's kind of a no-no. So patrol functions, they have a patrol sergeant's office, a patrol room, and a report writing room. We did this specifically because when we talked about it, when officers write reports, a lot of times they're viewing their body cams, they're listening to it on one headphone or one earpiece, writing the report. If they're in the officer's room, which is kind of the hub of the department, everyone's coming in and out and everybody's talking, it's really distracting. So we did a separate report writing room so they could have quiet and they could focus. A lunchroom with a day room with appliances, a table for them to sit at so they can have a space to eat their food that they're not putting evidence on. Locker rooms specific to, male, female, what locker sizes, what benches, sink, toilet, shower. Everything is so detailed, it's incredible. The physical training room, patrol storage, honor guard storage, the Sally port, everything. There's 15 line items in that, detailing, accommodating 2 vehicles front to back, drive-through preferred, ambulance accessible, an eye wash, an emergency shower, prisoner processing, secure door to the Sally port. There's a toilet room shower. It talks about basically what a processing room would look like, what an secure interview would look like. The detention cells, 3 detention cells, sight and sound separation between 3 containment areas, handicapped accessible, conforms to Mass Department of Public Health standards, right? So that's our big one. Evidence and property, there's an evidence receiving, then the evidence processing and forensic labs, and then evidence storage, and then with accreditation you have to have a double locked facility for narcotics, valuables, or firearms. So there's, all of those accommodations are made. Vehicle processing, which would take place in the Sally port, which is why we need the 2 lines. If we have a fatality, we would secure a vehicle there. Currently it goes to the highway department. It's not super secure and certainly not video monitored. So some more storage, an armory, gun cleaning area, laundry. That was a big one, believe it or not. I know we've discussed laundry. When officers go on calls and they get things on their uniforms, they don't want to track that into their homes, and they should not have to. So there's a laundry so they can have all their uniforms in their lockers, and if they get something, they can change and just wash it there so they don't have to track that home to their family. Data equipment, communications equipment, all of that is detailed with the fiber connections to the town network. Mechanical, all of that is detailed, circulation. So, and then storage outbuilding, which would be our road supply storage, bulk evidence, found property, and things like that, and bicycles. So I kind of separated this because I thought this was what everyone really wanted to hear about. So the proposed, and again, this is a draft, this is not final. The proposed, after meeting with Brian, he said what we needed to see to keep it a 1 floor without an elevator, right? 1-story building, which I think was everyone's hope, is that we didn't have to build an elevator with a 2-story building. Would have to be under 14,000 square feet. Based on this model, his needs assessment is a 13,350 foot space.
And is that gross, does it say? Or
That is a gross square footage.
Okay, so keep in mind that is the entire mass of the building.
Yep.
So
Total net square footage is about 9,890.
So that for everyone is very important to distinguish mass versus usable space. Yeah, so when you're talking 14,000, you're talking about what you can fit on a space.
Sure.
What you need to function is just around 9,000 and change.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's little, you know, listen,
Which is
it's 3 times what we have now.
5,000 square feet more than what you have currently.
Yeah. So the other part that they considered was site considerations with public parking, police vehicle, a marked fleet carport, so it would be sheltered. So when we have snowstorms and things, it shelters our cars because sometimes emergencies happen and we have to get backup cars. And we do clean our cars all the time, but obviously if we're busy, they're not getting shoveled off as quickly. A vehicle impound, lighting, and
So a
so
generator on there? For
yeah, there's a generator. Everything is on here. And so they said the acreage needed based on this need study, it was like a 72,000 square foot estimate. Again, total for parking, everything. And that would be 1.65 to 2 acres total. So that's pretty much my summary.
That's only with a 1-story though, right?
Well,
He only-
I'm not saying it has to be 1 story,
No,
but
that's
he
what he
said that he
projected.
could not go a 1 story if it was 14,000 feet or more.
Right.
So
So,
2-story would obviously reduce the footprint,
Sure.
and that would be a further discussion
Yeah.
down the road.
And just one question, Chief. How many parking spots? I'm just curious. Did
Yeah.
you note that?
yeah, we do have that.
Roughly, you know.
Yeah, I don't want to, so total number of spaces required, 30 minimum, preferred, because our meeting room, occupancy, training room, which would double as our emergency operations center, we were requesting 40 seats for that. Handicap parking 2, plus, so they want to have 12 vehicle parking for police parking. So it's about, I want to say,
Is it 12 plus 30?
So you've got some zoning requirements that require certain parking, and then
Yeah.
you've also got your desired and needed.
yeah, so
for-
like public parking plus cruiser vehicle plus staff parking. Like currently I don't even have a parking spot. I have to fight for my life every day, so.
And did he project the square footage for parking?
12,000.
Okay,
plus-
before we go too far into questions,
I was gonna say-
But it's
I
a
was going to
draft.
say, this is a Brian
It's a
Humes
very draft.
show,
Right.
please, and I would say,
Yeah.
let's save those questions for
Sure.
his meeting
Thank
next
you.
week. He's going to summarize this in a much easier readable
Yes.
format for us, where he's going to show
Agreed.
parking and so forth, but just a recommendation.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. No, I
So,
can-
and again, this is a draft, and this is just based on our data, his working, and our meeting.
Great.
You mentioned firearms storage. Is that your arsenal?
And where you would clean your weapon. We don't
Right.
have any space like that right now.
Understood.
And I believe all of you here have seen the closet that we keep our stuff in, and
Storage
it's
of ammo?
Yeah.
Spare parts, whatever.
correct.
Okay,
Cleaning
thank you.
kits. Thank you.
Very good.
So I think this is great information, and it's going to be tweaked, because as we
Yes.
present information and we hear, we may have questions, we may not agree, we may have.
We might want to make changes to
Yeah.
what they're talking about. As we all seen that they propose a Sally port that wasn't big enough, and, we might, so whatever comes through, I think we just wait till we actually get the report, take our own time to digest, because each of us have our own little things that we were kind of focused on, you know what I mean? And then we could probably go back with a list of questions after that.
So I will ask Brian upon completion if we can email all of you a copy of this pre-next Wednesday's meeting, so you have a chance to review it, so you can look at it. Again, this is just a draft based on what we've done so far.
But that would be helpful, if we could have
Right.
that in advance of the
Yep.
meeting, and we can ask questions of Brian at that point, or we can consolidate a question and answer, put through an email. Was this based on just good tasks versus necessarily space you have? So you have a task, the task has to have so many square feet in order to perform
Right,
it,
so
and that's how he based it?
he went through and, again, looked at our entire space and what we used each space for. He was not impressed, I can tell you that.
Do you guys
So-
have a gym there?
Yes, and here we
In
do.
there, okay,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
And those are all things we talk about as needs, wants,
Right.
and go forward with them. But that's good information, Chief. And I don't want to shut anyone down from asking any more questions on this. I just think there'll be more detail next week.
Right, and I agree. And like I said, this is a working draft. It will be completed by next week. What I will say is what was important to Brian is that this got vetted through the police department first. I have shared this every step of the way with all of the officers and sergeants and Becky and Gabby and dispatch. So we are all a green light at this point. It's amazing. Like
Even the dog officer.
animal control, everybody's been included.
Emergency management?
No, not
No
yet.
space?
Yes, he's got an
Okay,
EOC in it, you know, but that's actually a great question because there's a lot of office space. So there's currently like a lieutenant space, an SRO space, so he can have his own office on one of those spaces for now.
Okay.
That won't be utilized quite yet.
Just one thing.
Sure.
I just want to make sure, I think we're all assuming it, but I think it needs to be said that the current police department is totally inadequate.
Completely.
Okay.
But I will let Brian detail that a little bit more. He gave us a 1 out of 10.
A
So,
ranking, so that's important to be
Yeah.
able to share, and it's
Yeah.
easy to understand that.
Maybe that.
well, I think he was being polite.
So the good news is, based on having a study to see next week, we're on schedule as we should be to make decisions. So if we come back next week and we agree with
Right.
what Brian has, he'll be starting his next phase and
Correct.
really starting to show some form. And if he needs to make changes, we'll give him some direction. But thank you on that. So there's really no more feasibility study updates at this point. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we didn't approve our meeting minutes.
So real
I'd like
quick
to
on
make a
that,
motion to table the minutes till next meeting.
we didn't get them until after I posted the agenda on
Yeah.
Friday.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Thank you. We have an old business discussion. I'm not sure if there's anything we want to discuss about what we've had in the last 2 meetings. If there's anything we need to rediscuss, rehash.
Well, just a report. Last time we met, we had talked about what was on the table, and we pointed and we noted the 4 properties. I followed up with the 2 property owners on North Street, indicating that to them that they weren't off the table, but they did not make the cut in terms of the 4 for feasibility. They were very gracious and thankful. I followed up with the property, the 16-acre tract behind the VFW. I called, left a message. That was 3 weeks ago, approximately. I haven't heard back, so I don't believe that's a viable property. And the only other thing I'd like to point out is that I was approached by a citizen, and they asked to look into the cemetery property, if that was in terms of a town property. And I couldn't answer that, but I went to town hall. I saw Lee, the assessor, and he pulled the map, and it seems that the Crane family had it and gave it to Dalton, but there's 2 property owners. So I just want to, full disclosure, just say that I don't know the status. I don't know if we want to go down that, if it's a rabbit hole, but it's a town property. I would assume dedicated to cemetery, but I certainly don't know the details.
Which cemetery?
Asher.
Okay.
And I believe there's a right-of-way there too. So
Yes, I don't think it's.
Can I just remind the
No,
committee
this-
that we have an active motion and approved motion to not discuss any more properties until after feasibility? If we want to open that back up, I think we need a motion for that. But yes, so, if we do, I'm welcome to do that. I just think we need to do it officially.
I just want to report it, so it's out there. No, I'm not suggesting that we go down that
Okay.
path.
About property, I just want to ask one question. Based on our last meeting and our ranking, since then, the Taylor property was made aware that it's a purchase, not a lease. So I don't know if that needs to be
Sure.
discussed and maybe added to the evaluation that we've already done. I'd be looking for a discussion on that.
Reevaluation.
Chair, I just move that we stick to what we talked about and wait till after we get the report and move off all the properties for now. And just,
Well, we're going to give them, we want to give Brian 3 properties. We want to make sure we're giving him the 3 right properties that we all agree on. And I don't know if the Taylor property becomes different because it's now for sale versus a lease. And I didn't know at that time it was.
Well, I know, I repointed it when I submitted it to Ryan. Given that information, as I said, I didn't point any in terms of sale or lease because I wasn't aware which it was. So I repointed it accordingly and the score went up. But I still think it's within the three properties, the top three properties.
So the
regardless.
ranking of the properties did not change
Okay.
once I received your additional
Okay.
inputs.
Let me ask, Don, and I'll put you on the spot.
Go ahead.
If you submitted your scoring card, would it change our ranking?
I don't believe it would, and I just thought we were all gonna wait till we got the report back before we really could truthfully put an honest to God ranking on which one's gonna fit the best for us.
So you're comfortable allowing to go on as the ranking is currently?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we need any more discussion on that, but
No.
thank you for indulging me. Any other old business that we need to discuss that is open?
Well, we were going to discuss or follow through with the notion of uniqueness, following through with the Attorney
Yeah.
General. That was old business.
Yep. But did we get a call back, the
Well-
chair, through the chair?
So I have not received a return,
Okay, that's all.
so I can tell you that I have no update, but when I do, I can give you that. So, but that's in their court, the state, so I'll only say that it can take weeks for them to respond, and I'll request just to make sure that it's on their agenda. Any other old business? New business, I have one if
I have
anyone
one.
has.
I have one, but please go, Craig.
What I would like to do is take the table of contents for the report that I had circulated last time. We're going to need to start working on that draft. But what I would like the committee members to do is offer or volunteer to work on a section of this and see if we've got everything we need, everyone we need to start working on this report. So I would like the committee to take a few minutes and look at this, and if they have a certain area they would really like to work on and present information for the report, please put your initials next to it. Yes, Dave?
I'd like to work on the history of properties research, more or less like a summary.
Okay.
Tony and I have been involved since the very beginning, and I'd like a shot at writing a summary for our history, what we found on each and every site, what we liked, what we didn't like.
Would I be putting the two of you on the spot if
Yeah.
the two of you worked on the real estate options together as and provided at least a report that we would then approve?
Sure.
Is that a motion we would want to make?
I just got one more question before that. As far as when we're putting out what we like and we didn't like, are we talking all the committee or the ranking?
Yeah.
We're talking about probably
No,
very.
no,
Oh, sorry.
It's pretty much just, you're talking about the ranking from Ryan?
So
No.
that would be among the items within the real estate.
It'd be a supporting document.
Dave stated that he would like to do what, Dave? Talk
I'd like
about the
to do the
history?
first draft.
Right, and my question was it on the ranking system of the property or your personal?
Let me give you an example. The Whitting property on Upper North Street. We looked at it, it has a well that's inside the building. It has a septic system. It does not have a hookup to.
No, right, but I thought we took
Please
that
don't
out.
interrupt me. Does not have a town sewer hookup. It was a former oil distribution facility, so it's suspect. Those are the kind of things I'd like to put in the summary.
So maybe, let me be maybe a little clearer on what I'm looking for. So we're having to provide a report to the select board, and we're choosing to do this in May. The board is going to want to know that we've looked at everything that has been presented, and we've done some sort of conclusion based on a scoring system. So what I would say, I think these two would envision would be putting together everything we've looked at, the scoring card is supporting information, all of the property information that Tony had put together in his earlier iterations, and that would be all part of this, and then they would summarize that information.
Yeah.
That's what I envision.
Yeah.
It may be a little different, but that's what I'm thinking.
I think we're in concert with you.
Yeah.
So everything we've done to date will be rolled up into a summary that the committee has agreed upon, Don. So it's not going to be a new piece of
It's public
information.
knowledge,
It's
whatever
not
we
gonna
do.
be my personal
I
opinion.
understand that. I was asking if it was gonna go off the scoring card,
Well,
personal opinion.
it'll-
Well,
I
there's
mean-
more to it
There
than
better,
the scorecard.
there shouldn't be opinion in here. It should be only fact, what we know.
Right.
So
We gotta be
opinion is
careful-
going to
we
be a
gotta
summary.
Careful about stating a former fuel site or something like that.
Well,
I think
we
that's-
can certainly address it and say it's there. What we say about it is up to the committee to approve. So we'll get a draft.
Yeah.
We'll all look at it. If we disagree, we'll edit it, we'll change it, we'll massage it until we get to the product that we want to. But it just takes some legwork and some lifting, and having 2 people start that versus 5 people is just easier, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't want, that's just how I think this will work. I don't think we're going to be giving any surprises here or any new
No, whatever we
information.
give is public knowledge.
It's everything
Yes.
we've done to date. It's a
It's everything
culmination of
that's
everything we've
done.
done to date.
Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah.
So I'm just going back to just my request. So Dave Martindale and Tony Paggs will be working on the draft report for the real estate options. And there may be more than these things that we've listed so far. So just a starting place where we can review something. Thank you for volunteering for that. Feasibility study is a given. That's Brian Humes, and that's his show. The funding source will be partially from Lisa, our grant writer, but there probably will be something that someone needs to add to that and summarize the financials that we've looked through, what's possible, what may be possible. Is there anyone who wants to work with Lisa and just be part of that reporting process? Anyone feel comfortable with that role?
I could do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any interest in working with Ryan on this?
Well, we can all,
Yes, Tom?
Everything
I'm
we're
sorry.
doing is drafts.
No, I would work with Ryan.
Okay.
'Cause, I think I know the economic development bond bill stuff probably better than anybody else here.
Okay, so from a reporting standpoint, you guys can funnel information together. Ryan can use that information and present it to the committee. Sure. Thank you. So we have an executive summary, a cover sheet, and kind of a community activity. That's kind of like everything we've done up to date and giving everyone a process. I don't mind taking part of it on, or all of it, if no one else has any interest in it.
well, I don't mind assisting in terms of committee activity, in terms of, where we started to where we're at, and just point out the steps along the way. I have no problem.
Well, you volunteered, so let me share the wealth and make sure if there's anyone else who wants, Don, do you want, nope? Nope, you don't want any of that?
Nope.
Okay, so you're not going to provide any support to the report?
If anybody needs help, I'll do it, but I don't want to take over and do things. I think it's, where I would go is probably not where you guys would go, so.
Well, we have to write a report, so
Oh, I
I'm just trying to
understand.
get to that point. I'm certainly fine going a different route, but we have to build the report. And
Right,
And whatever we do is gonna be a draft.
right.
So I will take the executive summary portion, the conclusions and recommendations, that's a little ways down the road. We'll probably team that together, and we'll all look at that as a team. So if we have a motion to accept the work assignments as we put out, I'd like to put a motion out to accept this report.
Second.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
I have a new business too.
Okay, thank you for reminding me. Yeah.
I know we're going to hold off until we get an answer regarding any properties. However, we have a 3-month window here before feasibility is completed. And during that time, I'm assuming feasibility will look at these 3 that we've highlighted in terms of making the cut, the 3 Main Street properties. My concern is that at this juncture, we should be crafting an RFP to go out. And I say that because it's a minimum of 30 days where it has to be posted in the Commonwealth Register or whatever it's
Tony, can you
termed.
clarify RFP for what?
For proposals,
No, for what?
for sites.
Oh, okay, thank you.
For sites.
Thank you.
So right now, we have 3 potential sites. And I think it's a wise thing if we move forward as quickly as possible and get that RFP to get them legitimized or authenticated or whatever, and engage accordingly. I don't see us doing much between now and that 3-month period, other than focusing on that RFP and soliciting bids towards procurement.
Can we solicit a bid, and this is an open question, for anything if the funding is not in place? And this is a mass procurement question. I don't have the answer to that. I think we should find out what that
I think
is.
we've asked this question
Yeah,
4
so,
or 5 meetings back.
Yeah.
and I don't, maybe Tom, can you answer that?
Yes, we can, we just have to state that it's contingent on funding.
Okay, okay.
Right, but we don't have any funds that we could do that with, correct?
Right.
It would have to go through the warrant, through the town, through the select board, through an annual meeting.
But
Right.
in theory, it could be put out with that contingent. So, that would, I mean, I'm just wondering if we'd be wasting our time and then do nothing, but if we can put it out and it's contingent on funding, then I think we could certainly, in the next 3 months, entertain what that proposal is going to look like and start to craft it.
Yeah, well, I would hope we'd craft it ASAP, and that timing would segue nicely in terms of the end of April or sometime in April, where we'd have the feasibility study, and that would segue nicely in terms of requests for proposals. My concern is very real in the sense that the Dalton garage was on the table, it was taken off the table. Things can happen in 3 months. The church property is for lease. Things can happen. So if we have a legitimate proposal, that puts us in the arena, a serious arena where we're gonna, I mean, the next step to me is we have to secure a site, and that gets us that much closer to a site.
And is that a select board function? They have to approve our ability to go out to bid for a potential property?
Well, it's the town going out to bid, I would promulgate that RFP. What the RFP needs is the actual, what you're actually looking for in a piece of property. So we know we're looking for at least 72,000 square feet of ground. That's the kind of thing we have to include in the RFP. I was thinking that we would get from the feasibility study the requirements that we would need to put in an RFP. I think that's one of the most useful things that the RFP can do, is tell us what we need to go out to bid for.
So there still is the mechanics of a framework for an RFP. So we have to, it's not just a one-sheet piece of paper that says we want this. We all know it's a pretty lengthy, comprehensive document. So putting everything together outside of the specifics from Brian could be done while we're waiting. So we could be drafting what the RFP is, Tom, and unless that's something you're going to do
Well,
as the town
yeah,
manager.
Taking guidance from the committee. One of the things, for example, is, one of the things we could say is, we're looking for a vacant lot. Or we could say, we're looking for land and we're going to rank a vacant lot this way and a lot with the building that has to be demolished this way and a lot with the building to be used this way.
Right, so there is that ranking system as well that has to be created. So I think if we are thinking we're gonna want an RFP somewhere around the time of the feasibility study completion and it going to the select board, then yeah, I think it is a good idea to at least get the shell of the RFP together and start to work on that.
Land access, square footage, leave out, but get the RFP ready to go and add the boilerplate.
Yeah, we can make it as broad or specific as we want, tailor it, if we want to purchase or land, we can do that. My concern is that we do it sooner rather than later. And as I said, it's a 30-month window that it has to sit there in terms of being publicized.
30 months?
30-day window, excuse me. So, yeah, I just want that to happen. as soon as possible.
And that 30 days is a minimum.
A minimum, right, a minimum.
So again, I think next week, presentation, then digest that information, and then working on a shell of an RFP. I think it's just the time and the effort and who's going to have enough information, enough knowledge to put that together. I was willing to do it for the feasibility study because that's my work, my bread and butter, but putting an RFP together for site selection is not my bailiwick. So I don't see myself drafting that. So who would draft it?
I don't have a problem. I've worked with Tom. I presented the committee a draft from New Marlboro in terms of their RFP. I have other drafts from Wayland. They're lengthy documents. Nothing new there, but yeah.
So if the two of you would like to
I don't
work
have a
on that, I'm
problem.
just saying that's fine, and I don't think that we can put a motion in once you guys have something to present.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And we'll wait to hear from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we'll need is decisions by the committee about those various parameters.
So this is kind of a phase type of thing where you can work on the framework of the bigger picture of the document while we're waiting for other information to come in. And Tony and Tom, if you guys take that lift, that'll be helpful because it's going to take time and someone has to do it.
I think if we leave the square footage out and the acreage out, the rest is boilerplate.
You
You
do-
add that to the,
Yeah. You do broad-based.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a scope of services that'll be very specific, and that will be a holding place within the RFP. But if, I'm just trying to get from the committee, do we really think and want to put an RFP out as part of our presentation and report to the select board? Because that's not necessarily in our charge, and I just want to have a discussion about
I
that.
think the timing of this is a question to me. Until I get the feasibility study information solidified, which is the end of April timeframe, you know, I don't know how I can fully put together the RFP and then have that 30-day window and everything else. So to me, I'm okay with putting together the shell for the RFP. Certainly we can do that. That'll be work that is done ahead of April. But until we get that final report and we agree to that report, you can't finalize that, and then I question our ability to be able to put out an RFP without going to the select board and getting approval of our report and feasibility and everything else. That's the part that I'm a little stuck on.
And I agree, Ryan. We're subservient, so to speak, to the select board. But I would want to make that RFP broad enough so that the 3 properties we pointed fall within the scope of that RFP.
Mm-hmm.
And
may I
then
suggest-
we craft it, we look it over, we pass it up to the select board.
And may I suggest maybe that RFP shall be a supporting document to the report we do, and we can say we've come to this conclusion and this is going to be our next step. And that would be then the select board would have that information. We'd be ready to go with it, Tony. So maybe we can do that and add it to the report.
Yeah, I would be okay with supporting it and having it as part of the document we provide to the select board. I think that would be a smart move, gives them an easier way to just authorize us to go forward with that and make this move a little quicker.
Any other comments or questions on that topic? Okay, so we're going to leave it with Tony and Tom. They'll come back when they're ready, and we'll look at what they have. Thank you for that. And I think that really took care of 6 as well, preparation for the final report, unless there's anything else on that topic.
Just on that, I'm sorry, Craig. On that topic, do we have a time frame for when you want to start to see drafts back?
Good.
2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month?
Some of us have more work than others. The preparation for the real estate may take a little time. So I would say that if we could be working towards a late February delivery on drafts,
That's fair.
First week in
or
March.
before, I mean, you're certainly
as
welcome to be
possible.
overachievers and work on it sooner.
Well,
But
by the first week in March, I'm okay, if not sooner, but sure.
okay,
Yeah.
so we'll look at something in that time frame, if that's acceptable. Anything else on that, Ryan?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I just want to get a motion that we're to set the next meeting for the 29th at 5:30 for Brian Humes' report. Okay, second it?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
5:30 next Wednesday, is that it? Is that what-
5:30 next Wednesday.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a motion to table item 9, executive session, to possibly the next meeting or the meeting after, depending with Brian's time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
very good.
Okay, thank you. Stay warm.
All right.